invocation from Salvation Army? There's someone here from Salvation Army tonight. Nope, okay. Roll call.
Olson.
Here.
Rice.
Here.
Dosher.
Here.
McCardle.
Here.
Barrington.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Sharks. Here. Smith.
Here. Okay, before we start our official order of business tonight, I want to first of all thank Kevin Roth and his crew for what I think was a spectacular job of cleaning our city streets in this blizzard this past Saturday. So, Kevin, thank you to you and your crew. Job well done. The next thing here I want to do is that I want to do a proclamation here in the honor of the Dakota Westland Girls Basketball National Championship Team. I think we have the young ladies here tonight, so I'd like to have you all stand, please, while I read the proclamation.
Should they come forward, maybe, so we can all...
Yeah, why don't you come up around here if you would, please.
You gotta come all the way around. All the way around.
Oh, there you go.
Viewership is up. It did.
Our room just got a lot more beautiful.
I'm going to stay seated so the microphone will pick up what I say here so that people at home can hear this. But this is a proclamation in honor of the Dakota Westland Women's Basketball 2018 NAIA Division II National Championship Team. Whereas the City of Mitchell views Dakota Westland University and the Dakota Westland University athletic teams as valuable assets to the community of Mitchell, enhancing the quality of life for our community, and the City of Mitchell is proud to say that the world's only Corn Palace is home court for the Dakota Westland women's basketball team. Whereas the 2017-2018 women's basketball team concluded its season by winning the NAIA Division II National Championship title, the first national championship in Dakota Westland University history. Whereas the 2017-2018 women's basketball team demonstrated hard work and determination throughout the season under the leadership of Jason Christensen, tying the school record for the number of wins, 32, and continuing those efforts during the NAIA Division II National Tournament with an average margin of victory of 16.6 points per game. Whereas those efforts are admired and respected by the Mitchell community and demonstrates the type of character that Dakota Westland University students and the Mitchell community possesses. Whereas this historic accomplishment creates a sense of community pride and demonstrates to a larger audience what can be accomplished when efforts are made to go outside expectations. Whereas this community pride is evident by the thousands of fans that support the Dakota Westland basketball teams, whether they are playing on the road or playing at the world's only Corn Palace. Whereas the 2018 NAIA Division II National Championship team showed how their efforts were outside expectations by leading the nation in total assists, 743, total defensive rebounds per game, 27.0, and free throws percentages of 80.4%. By breaking the school record for assists, by breaking the school record for three-pointers made in a season. Whereas the 2018 NAIA Division II National Championship team had several members recognized for their hard work and determination, including Ashley Bray, who was named Ashley Bray, who was named All-American First Team, Amber Bray, who was named All-American Honorable Mention, Ashley Bray, Amber Bray, and Riley Osthaus, who were named All GPAC First Team. Riley Osthaus, who was named the GPAC Co-Defensive Player of the Year, Kennedy Cheeseman, hope I'm pronouncing that right, Kennedy Cheeseman, who was named All GPA Second Team in National Tournament Most Valuable Player. Chesney Nagel, who was named All GPAC Honorable Mention. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Mitchell wishes to formally recognize the 2018 NAIA Division II National Championship team for its historically successful national championship title, the great sportsmanship and teamwork that was displayed in cities and basketball courts throughout their division, and for representing the City of Mitchell and Dakota Wesleyan University in such a positive manner. Be it further resolved that I, Jerry Toomey, Mayor of the City of Mitchell, and the Mitchell City Council convey this very special recognition by way of this proclamation to the 2018 AIA Division II National Championship team and wish to congratulate them for their exceptional achievements on this day, the 16th day of April, 2018. Congratulations. We got one more thing that I want to do, though. I want to present on behalf of the City of Mitchell, the City Council, and this mayor, the key to the City of Mitchell. You guys can share this key. I don't know how many doors will unlock.
So who's graduating?
Jason, can you come to the microphone just a second? I had a conversation with Dr. Novak here a few weeks ago and talking about your team, and not only are they great athletes, but academically they're top notch. I mean, they're just off the charts. Can you just kind of relay a little bit about how this team excels in the classroom also?
Yeah, I can. Actually, that's why Riley's not here. She has night class, and we do put academics before athletics, and so that's one of the reasons Riley's not here. But our team GPA right now is just a little shy of 3.8. These kids they just get it done. We don't do study tables. We don't do things like that. They just, they care about academics, and we've always stressed that in all my years. And I guess the 8 years that I've been there, our average GPA, Celeste figured it out the other day, is a 3.69. So that's pretty good. Yeah. So thank you. Appreciate it.
I think that's taboo. Okay, first thing on the agenda then is the approval of the consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion at all? Any public comment? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Charks.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Barrington. McCardle.
Aye.
Dosher. Rice.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye. Carried. Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor and members of the city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium and state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Come to the microphone.
Well, no, I just want to be able to speak, ask permission to speak during item 16.
Okay, okay.
I have something if there's no one else in the community.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Susan.
So I called Kevin this morning and asked if he might come up and visit with us a little bit. I know that there have been this was such a heavy snowfall, and I too commend our street department for clearing it so quickly. I told Kevin this morning we were in Sioux Falls on Sunday to meet our newest granddaughter. Let me just get that little plug in. Anyway, and the Sioux Falls streets were not nearly as clean and well done as we have here. So I think that we really should appreciate, which we probably don't as much as we should because we live here and we've come to expect it. But I think that we really need to acknowledge that we have an exceptional street department that does that. But I know that there have been a lot of comments because of the heaviness of the snow about gates so that we don't have the buildup of snow in driveways. And I've just had a number of comments about that. And so I asked Kevin if he would maybe just talk to us a little bit about that.
Not sure what you all want to know, but I'll just give you a quick overview. Back in, I think it was 2014, Ron Olson had done a presentation on this, and so I looked back and I pulled some of his information out, and why it's not being used in Mitchell. And okay, I see on here they compared that. They got a lot of their information from the city of Sioux Falls, and they're about the only community in the state of South Dakota that does any snow gates. It takes 23% longer, and it's 31% more fuel. When you use snow gates, you don't realize it, but you lose about 7 foot of width in your street. So you pretty much lose one whole parking stall in width. So you're, on average, the increased cost was about 33%. Where it took, this is kind of, some of this is Sioux Falls, but they say it took 24 to 30 hours to just plow snow as they normally would. It added roughly 6 to 12 hours of time with the snow gates on. So like Mitchell, it takes about 10 hours, 12 hours on a pretty heavy snow. And that's not including District A or the parking lots. So you'd probably be looking at, it'd probably add, anywhere from 2 to 3 hours probably, at least. Currently we run 2 motor graders and 7 truck plows. 4 of our truck plows have spreaders, and that carries your salt and mag chloride. We run a couple loaders, and they're mainly just for parking lots, cul-de-sacs. So to give you, I know you're probably looking at a little bit of the cost. There was a cost breakdown and everything in here. Well, the city of Sioux Falls, we won't get much into that, but this is all based off that. So if you take their information and you break it down into Mitchell, the city of Mitchell would have to lease motor graders. We only have 2 in the fleet, so that takes pretty much all of our trucks out of the fleet, which are 7. So we'd have to lease out about 7 motor graders. And if we got 2 and say we just cut her to 6 and we lease out 4 and we add the snow gates, you're looking at about $250,000. Just,
And that would be annually.
every year.
Correct?
Every year. Yep. You're looking at about 200, and you're probably close to $250,000. This was done 6-7 years ago, and it was $230,000. I guess what you're looking at for additional costs, they kind of itemized and talked about a little bit about this. Your costs are going to be your additional overtime, your additional fuel, your additional personnel to keep the spreaders operational. So that'd be your mechanics and stuff. You'd have to figure out a way to kind of run 24 hours around the clock with limited personnel, because we run with what we got right now, and it's a lot of hours. And then one of your biggest things are your business districts. Since this is going to take so much longer, your downtown area and your District A snow removal, which we started on it last night already. Barely, not even 2 days behind the storm. You're going to add 2 to 3 days before we'll even touch that snow and get it out of here. With all the extra time. The District A, like the windrow.
And why is that?
Because of all the extra time with the snow gates. It says we have roughly 5,000 garbage customers. So assuming that it takes 5 minutes per driveway, you're adding 400 hours.
Kevin, when Ron was here, he talked about, with snow gates, you couldn't, anything over, I think it was 2 inches, you couldn't do it. So even in a storm like this, even if we had snow gates. And I know Sioux Falls requires every single vehicle to be off the street when they use snow gates.
They would every single vehicle would be towed off the street,
But my
irregardless.
Keloland News had it Saturday night. They did not use snow gates this time.
Right. No, they couldn't, because the snow was too big.
Too big, too wet, and too heavy. Yeah, if you get 4 to 6 inches of snow, that's about the max for your snow gates. So anything over that, they're kind of pretty much worthless.
Well, and two, I think Ron talked about, it depended on the kind of snow. When you got the wet, heavy stuff, even if you got 2 or 3 inches, you couldn't use the snow gates anyway, because you couldn't push it.
Yeah, the hydraulics on them won't allow them to move with the heavy, wet snow in there.
And
they're very limited on hydraulic pressure when you get them all the way on the end of something.
a lot of us were on council during that time, but another decision why we stayed where we were at is we have a fleet of trucks, as you talked about, and we utilize them in the summer to build our roads. And so we wanted to use that equipment also in the winter. So it just made sense for us not to purchase additional equipment or lease or do whatever, because we wanted to utilize the equipment we did have.
Absolutely.
And the one thing that we talked about, and is brought up before, is sometimes the speed on this heavy snow, the way your drivers have to hit that with a certain amount of speed, or they would not get it off. So unfortunately, it does probably fly a little bit further, but that's the reason why, is because if they didn't pick their speed up, they wouldn't even be able to, they'd probably get stuck.
Yeah, we can't even, we got a mess going right now just trying to do the downtown business district like last night, just the side streets off Main Street. We can't turn the corner and drop a plow. We don't even go anywhere. We have to literally back up and hit it before we can even go anywhere. There's, on Main Street, most of that stuff's 4 foot. Well, we were on our third blower last night. We lost our first one because it's so wet and heavy. We lost the second one. We were just pulling the third one out when we got the first one. I had 2 mechanics in 24 hours so they could get another one fixed. So it's this wet and heavy snow is really bad. But when we start pulling it out, the whole there's 12 inches of water on the bottom of these piles right now. It's a lake under there, and it's totally saturated. But one thing that I was just going to touch on real quick, and then I'll be done unless you got some questions. The city of Watertown actually tried it, and they stopped. They said they stopped many years ago, and the reasons they stopped, it was difficult to an administrator. It was too costly to accomplish, but they had a lot of damage to driveways and damage to landscaping. A lot of your driveways, you got your mailbox right by your driveway, you got landscaping, rock and stuff like that. They were having to go around and fix landscaping, shrubbery, rocks.
Sorry, because the gate would hit that? I mean,
Yeah.
why would it damage the
Well,
driveways?
if you got a lot of snow out there and you got a gate, say I'm the snowplow and about 4 rows of chairs away from me is the end of your gate. It's really hard to sometimes judge when you got a bunch of snow and it's flowing over the gates, or you can't necessarily see where the end of the driveway is or something. So then you start grabbing, pulling in whatever's there. It could be landscape, could be sod, could be whatever. But that was one of their reasons. So and then they got duration, adding all this time. So when we go out and we're pretty set on, for us to do all the emergency routes, and 4 lanes and priority routes, and then switch over to our east-west routes, then switch over to the north-south routes to do the whole town. We're typically anything under 6 inches, we'll be done in that 10 hours. I mean, we're done. And even this last snow, it took us a little longer, but we actually did pretty good time-wise.
I don't know how many people know this, Kevin, but I was a little bit surprised to hear this, that you guys traveled over 300 miles cleaning snow in the city of Mitchell. That's a lot of miles in a short period of time. And again, I think you guys did a tremendous job in this big storm.
We got over 320 miles of roadway that we plow every storm, if you put it all together.
A lot of roadway in a short period of time. Again,
so anyway,
job well done.
If anyone's got any questions on snow gates, I can do some research and get you some answers. But I know Ron's got a full presentation, a PowerPoint, if somebody would ever want to view that, or I can make the council members copies of this. I think it was 2014 when he did this, and you can kind of go and review the information. There's a lot of flow charts in here and stuff that a guy can look at if you got questions.
And Kevin, you mentioned something to me when we spoke this morning about different tires even being needed.
Yeah, the city of Sioux Falls, they actually, when they lease out, I think they lease out, what did it say? They got, if I remember right, they got like 66. Yeah, the city of Sioux Falls has 66 motor graders, and 37 of them are city-owned, and 29 are contractor-owned. But anyway, the ones they lease out, they have to take all the tires off and pretty much buy a whole new set of tires for each one, and then when they turn them back in on lease, they take those tires off and they put the tires they took off back on. So you're looking at a substantial cost. And then you got to have the operators. We'd have to train all the operators to run it, unless you're going to hire civilians or other contractors to actually operate those in the winter months. And then even if you were to do that, these motor graders and stuff don't carry your chemicals on them. They don't carry your salt chemical, your salt, your mag chloride. So you're still staffing the trucks to go around and spread these chemicals.
And I was over in Sioux Falls today, and you're right, it takes out fully, it's a half of a lane that is gone because, I kept thinking, why have they not plowed these further over? Boy, they need some lessons from Mitchell. But I didn't know that it had to do with the gates. So.
Yep, that's all with the gates. Yep.
Well, thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it.
Is there anyone else that has anything they want to say to the council? Anybody?
The only other thing I thought was noteworthy was the tax report. Are you going to mention that at all? Michelle? Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, I just think that maybe you could mention that just because it's kind of exciting and optimistically positive.
We're up.
Through the first quarter of 2018, the first and second penny sales tax is up 14.34% over the same period last year. And the third penny sales tax is up 11.08% over the same period of the first quarter last year.
There's a lot of year left, and if you're a farmer, it's looking kind of grim right now.
Got to dry up. It'll dry up. Hope not too much, but it dries up a little.
The only thing else that I'm going to add on here for citizens input, I'm going to comment. We have a new person who joined our team today. His name is Kyle Croce. He's our new Director of Public Works, sitting over there against the south wall over there. And had a little quick tour with Kyle today, and just kind of scratched the surface barely, but he's got a lot to get his arms around. But we welcome you to our team here, Kyle, and we've been long awaiting your arrival. Welcome. Okay, next is a hearing on the application to transfer retail on-sale liquor license RL-5756 from Bainan Corporation doing business as Ramada Inn, 1525 West Haven Street, Mitchell, South Dakota, to Mitchell Hotel LLC doing business as Ramada Inn, 1525 West Haven Street, Mitchell, South Dakota.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action on Resolution R2018-18, a plat of Lot 1, Block 6 of Woodland Heights, First Edition, a subdivision of Tract 1, Block 1, Cranes Edition, in the southeast quarter, Track 103 North, R60, west of the 5th PM, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota.
If you noticed in April 9th Planning Commission meeting, you would see that they did recommend approval of this plat. A couple of things I would point out to you is this is also in tax district number 18 too. So it's just a reminder that, well, actually all that whole development is, but I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. And it's the one that's right on the corner of where the Carl Road there. So, and you can probably also notice on the plat which ones have already been filed, so you can see that they're kind of moving right along.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next is action on Resolution R2018-19, a plat of lots 1, 2, and 3, and 4, Block 1 of Powderhorn Subdivision and Longhorn Court in the southwest quarter of Section 24, T103 North, R61 west of the 5th PM, Davidson County, South Dakota.
Again, on the April 9th Planning Commission meeting, they did recommend approval of this plat. Just a couple things to bring to your attention, and this is outside our zoning jurisdiction, but it's within 3 miles, so that's why the city has to see this. My understanding is this has been already approved by the county, or part of the Planning Commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is a review of Lake Mitchell revised proposal of $80,000.
I'll do just a quick review. The chairman of the Lake Committee and the technical advisory team are also here if you have questions for them. There was two invoices. The original proposal is in your packet, and also the new proposal that Fire sent over based on our discussions at the last city council meeting. I'll just quickly go through what will be included. The 3.1 is the project management that went down from the first proposal, mainly because the project is smaller now. They're going to analyze in 3.3 the soft sediments. I should say that 3.2 has already been completed. So, and then 3.3, they're going to analyze the soft sediments, and that's already started, and there's about 4,000 left on that, and that's what was included in the 80,000. They're also going to map it, the lake, and that's another $5,940, and that has not changed from the original proposal. Once we're done with that, they're going to work on the dredging design. They're going to give us at least 3 options. They're going to be working with the technical advisory team and the lake committee to determine what's best for the lake. That's the 33,000 portion. And if the committees have additional scenarios, we're going to be looking at that. And that's also part of 3.6, which is the alternatives that they'll be reviewing with the. Once we've reviewed it with the committees, then we'll. Fire is going to come to the city council meeting and share with you what all the alternatives are. From there, we'll get a preliminary design, and that'll get us to that final number that you requested which would be how much is this going to cost the city, and what project are we going after at that point. So that's what the 80,000 includes. On the last page is what is not included from the original proposal. And what we need to know today, I guess, is if there's anything that the city council wanted in there that's not in there that we need to fix or adjust or add.
We just thought it was important to see in writing what you were getting for the $80,000 that you discussed with FIRA yesterday, so that narrative will give additional description of what your deliverables are and what the changes in the fee estimates were.
I have a question on 3.7, the 17.3 thousand. Why are we going to do that? Why shouldn't we wait to give them that money until later on?
They were going to look at, in order to get that number, they wanted to look at POET and some of the others. It's listed in there. Stormwater outlets, the shoreline considerations, POET. They wanted to look at those to get that final number for you, because we won't be able to give a final number without knowing what we're going to do with those.
So when will that happen? Will that happen afterwards? Or?
We'll have it in
this.
This is part of the study. We'll have that information. That's correct.
When do they figure on coming back with this? In July, August?
2 months. It was 2 months from 2 weeks ago, but since we've waited a couple weeks because we haven't signed anything, we wanted to bring it back to you first. So it'll be about 2 months. So we should have something second meeting in June-ish.
You know, I didn't vote for the original study. But once we had the study, I thought we would, you know, have these answers. And to me, it's a little bit like you and your spouse want to have a child and you can't, so you get a surrogate. And then she gets stroppy at 8.5 months, and you kind of have to placate her until the baby's born. But I've had a lot of people in town ask a very legitimate question. Why do we have to pay for a second study to find out what the first study was supposed to tell us?
The first study was a report on the studies. We did push them to give us some numbers, and that's what we wanted to get, some preliminary numbers to see, to give the committees something to look for, like what project do we want to go after. So this isn't another study. We're narrowing it down to a dredging project, and that's what the committees voted on and decided to move forward on. So this is a dredging design. This is something a little bit different than what we wanted. Several ideas that came in the first TM. But this is actually a dredging project that we're going after to see, you know, what that's going to specifically cost. That's the direction the committees wanted to move, so that's the direction we're going.
And I know I'm killing the messenger, but I've been walking around, and FIRA's used up an awful lot of goodwill. There isn't much goodwill left for FIRA.
Yeah.
My name is Joe Kippis with the Lake Committee. Just a comment. The first study was not a design of how we correct the problem. The first study developed a mass balance of the lake and primary contributors to the problem in the lake. And it really didn't offer solutions. I think we pressed FIRA at that point saying, well, what can we do about it? And we wanted to, and naturally, we wanted to know what's this going to cost the city. And so FIRA offered some basically budgetary numbers that we could use to just kind of get our heads wrapped around the potential. So I guess when we get into the second part of the study, it's not dealing with the mass balance so much anymore. Now it's into what kind of a design can we create that goes in and actually corrects the problem that we discovered in the first phase. So, and they're an engineering company, and so they make their money by charging hours, and when we ask them to do things, they create hours and they charge us for it. And that's I guess that's the way this works. So I'm not sure what to tell people about why do they need another study. Well, I think that as soon as you get better information, you get potentially a better solution, and that's what we've seen with that second set of core samples. Potentially the amount of soft sediment that they saw went up dramatically, and so the first solution they had in mind probably didn't exactly fit the dollar figure or the amount of work required. So now they're working on those core samples to try to get a better understanding of the content and how much and where, and of course now you have people that draw a lot of dollars per hour creating the design, and we're racking up a bill when we do it. So I guess I'm not saying that's good news, but I believe that's what we're doing, and I think if we want a solution and an honest response, then we have to go through some of this. I guess that's my comment.
Joe, a question comes to mind, and the information of the second core samples and looking at potentially more cubic yards of material to be reduced. Did FIRA and I guess I'm more interested, the technical group talk about the fact that if there's that much more sediment, does that influence the mass balance as to whether or not it's still approximately 50-50, or do we know if that's changed, or we won't know if that's changed until they do the sediment analysis?
I think that answer is probably coming in June, when I can't say Greg Kipp's business out in Rapid City, when he does his yes, thank you. When he completes his work, then he's going to get an idea of what is the contribution of that soft sediment to this overall phosphorus level, and
we'll have a updated information.
Well, I would assume that they should give us maybe a better answer as to what that split is. Right now, our assumption is 47% of the total phosphorus. Maybe that goes up or down, I don't know. But I think the fact that they found, at least in specific areas of the lake, they found several feet of that soft sediment. It's all laden with phosphorus, and I suspect that has more potential, but I don't know.
And the mass balance was just how much is released per year, so that even though there's more there, it still would potentially release the same amount per year. It just might last a lot more years than we thought that it might come up. So it's not that maybe that more comes up per year, but
well, it's the reason. Question. Yeah, exactly, and it's the reason when they came back to us, they said you have to have two solutions, to fix your problem, and one is in lake and one is near lake or up in your watershed, and it's just that if we only do the watershed, for instance, then probably the improvement created by that may happen, but it's going to be many years down the road before we see it affect our lake. And so that's why it was recommended that we have control of the lake area if we want to make an impact. That's probably our best effort right now, but we can't neglect what's in the watershed either, because that keeps bringing it.
The other question I had, and I went back and read the first presentation that FIRA gave us, and my perception of what one of the things we were going to get for the first $70,000 or whatever, the mass balance study, one of the items mentioned in there was to concentrate, bang for the buck, dollars per pound of phosphorus removed. From all of their proposals that were in the TM, they had the bypass, they had the sediment upstream lake, they had the dredging. Did we ever get $1 per pound of phosphorus, a table from them of here's the dollars per pound of phosphorus removed?
I don't recall seeing it, Steve, and I'm not sure. That's a question we can ask. And it might be in the TM, I guess.
I think you can calculate it from their assumptions, but it's just a question, because the question comes back of yeah, there are a lot of visible things people can see to do, cattle out of the water, all those types of things, but the dollars per pound of phosphorus, I think does come back to an in-lake remediation as the best bang for the buck. The question I have from the council standpoint is I need to be convinced of that, of what is the dollar per pound, and if we don't know really what's down there yet, I guess I'd like to be able to see that.
Yeah, especially with the more recent information about just the quantity potential. But I can't answer that question. They may have given that number, but I can't repeat it. I don't know.
Joe, I just want to say that I appreciate you and everybody else who's been working on this problem. But you're experiencing politics now. I'll use a different subject entirely. People have been saying to me over and over, when are you going to fix Sanborn? When are you going to fix Sanborn? And then yesterday I got a call, when is Sanborn going to be done? And that's the phase we're in now with the lake.
Yeah. That's good. I appreciate that. Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
I do want to add that we still are about $300,000 away in engineering fees, probably away from project completion. So, yeah, I just want to. We will be asking for more funds in 2 months.
That'd be before the budget or after the budget?
It'll be before, yeah.
And we can delay it too if we see fit to delay it down the road too, with the new council and the new mayor.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any questions for me at all?
We wanted to do this review tonight because we know $80,000 was approved at that last council meeting, and we rather than approve the whole $385,000 for the design plan, and the council rightfully so said, well, we're going to go $80,000 because these core samples that they took are showing a lot more sediment than what was initially projected, which was 500,000 cubic yards. Now we could be talking up towards the 2 million cubic yards. And that doesn't mean 8 times or 4 times the the 7.2 million for the total project that we're looking at, because you're not going to take 4 times the equipment cost, and you're not going to 4 times this and 4 times that. But we wanted to make sure that the $80,000 that was approved, that you guys know what you're going to get for that $80,000 and what you're not going to get. So it's important to look at that part of the report there that shows what you're not going to get answers for. And if the council feels that some of those answers are important, then we may need to talk about that, because we want to make sure that we have all the answers that you people are expecting in 2 months when we meet again.
I don't know who this is for, if it's for Nathan or Joe or the mayor, but have we, assume we're going to dredge. Have we looked into where we're going to put that stuff? I mean, that seems to me,
that's part
before we even say we're going to dredge, we're going to have a place to put it.
That's part of the partial design. They're going to look at where we're going to put it, and so when we come back, we're going to tell you that answer.
I have here I think it was last week, Stephanie and I had went around and we had looked at some potential sites. Again, they're just potential. We don't know for sure yet, but there's a couple of areas that we are looking at. And where we go yet, that still needs to be determined. I need to review that with fire at the first opportunity. But it's not that we haven't thought about it. We have, and we are looking. And a couple of good areas come to mind. But I just don't want to release those yet, because we'd have to talk to the right people that have control of some of those spots.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, let's move on then to action to award bid for 1,500 and 1,600 blocks of East Hanson and 200 to 500 blocks of South Wallace for water main replacement, city project number 2018-2.
And Mayor, on this item, we're requesting that the council table action until the following meeting.
Move to table.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is action to award bid for curb and gutter project number 2018-14.
This is our annual curb and gutter bid that we bid every year. Part of this is on our, overlay streets that we do every year. Then the other part is when we do miscellaneous curb and gutter work around town. We would recommend, we had two bidders. We would recommend awarding to Colwell Concrete in the amount of $62,331.10. Any
Move
questions?
the award. Oh, well, concrete.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is action to award bid for curb and gutter project number 2018-14.
16.
Down here twice. Okay, I'm sorry. Action to award bid for new or used compost screener city project number 2018-18. And there was a gentleman in the audience that said earlier he wanted to speak on this issue. If you want to come up and say your name, please. And
Hi there. My name is Brad Kicker. I work with Hennon Equipment. We're the Comptech dealer for South Dakota. I do live in Minnesota though, but we've done business in Sioux Falls and Rapid City and Pierre, South Dakota. I have a long Garrett Lapsus from Comptech. But anyway, I was over here last week and on the bid opening, and I'm the second one in line. There was three of us, and I'm in the middle one. But I just wanted to question it a little bit or give our concerns. Is that in the bid process, we met all the specs that were required, and in the bid it said that we had to either meet or exceed the bid, or the specs, and we met them all. The lowest priced one had four of the items that they did not meet the specification. One was for a punch plate screen they didn't have in there, a big large side door for cleaning and easy maintenance of the machine. The length of the drum was a foot shorter than what the specification said, and it said in there that they had to be delivered within 90 days, and it's 60 days, and he had on there that they would deliver in 90 days. And on our particular machine, we have two discharge conveyors. They have one. We have tandem axles. They have a single axle. On theirs, they have to remove the way it looks, their hitch, in order to even operate it. So by just the consideration of the extra conveyor and the extra axle, you'd be looking at another $25,000 that is in our machine initially. Now, I know we weren't the low bid, but we did meet all the specifications that were required. And we, we can do it within 60 days. Actually, we can deliver it in 2 weeks if it need be. But I mean, we did meet all those requirements. And I do have literature on my machine here. If anybody would like to have a piece of literature of what our machine looks like, I'd be glad to share it with you,
Justin?
I'll let Kevin come up and do his portion of it, and then I'll respond after that.
Okay. Titan Machinery was a little better, as you guys can see. There are some deviation from the specs.
Well, wait a minute. If there are deviations from the specs, then it's not a little better, right?
Well,
I'll get into that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I met with Justin prior to going through anything. The deviations of the specs are, as Justin and me kind of discussed, they're almost so minor that it's, I don't even know how to explain it. You want to?
I mean, wait a minute. I mean, under the law, you have to meet the stated specifications. If I order black glasses frames and you give me hot pink, I don't think I'm going to take them because it's a small deviation from my original request.
That's true, Mel, but you also have an obligation not to make the specs so specific that you effectively take a competitor out of the equation.
Well, what about the 90 days versus the 60 days?
Could I
elaborate on that?
My understanding is that they'd have it here within 4 to 8 weeks, which would be within that 60-day timeline.
But they said on their bid it was 90 days, though.
My name is Wade Planting. I work for Titan Machinery out of Sioux Falls. We did submit the low bid. What we documented on the bid was my manufacturer has one in stock. They still do. We can do delivery in 4 weeks. I can't lock that machine down for your bid until you award, I guess is what I'm saying. Prior to walking into this room tonight, it's still there. If you were to award, I can get it to you in 4 weeks. If it's tabled, it goes somewhere else, and that machine sells, I would be 90 days out.
What about the points this gentleman made about how your bid was deficient from the original?
We submitted a specification exceptions just to elaborate where we did deviate. The way the spec was written on one machine, there was no other bidder. If you were going strictly on spec, there is only one machine that meets every specification, so there is no competition.
Well, you could meet or exceed, so then there is always competition because you can always exceed what the bid specs are, though, too.
So on the punch plate deviation, we do include that on there. I don't know where the information came from on that. We do have a punch plate.
And your literature shows wire mesh.
That is standard. We take the option to go to punch plate, and that is documented in the quote submitted with the bid. Our drum is 12 foot long. It is a foot shorter than what was specified, 6 inches larger in diameter, so you do gain that surface area back, or screening area back. The side doors, the way our machine is designed, there is no need for the side door. All material underneath the screening drum is coated in a anti-stick coating. If for some reason something does stick in there, you do have access to it underneath the drum. Open, easy to get at.
Our door is made so you can open the whole side up for cleaning, and if you want to remove the drum, you can remove it out of there. That's why our whole door opens up from one side. So.
And that is a design variation. Our drum lifts off from the top. It doesn't come out from the side. There's lifting eyelets on it, so it does lift up off the top of it. It's a single-man operation. If you so choose to, obviously. If there's more people involved, it would be more safe, but not necessary.
So I think back to your point, Mel, is, yeah, I think there is that general obligation that you do need to meet or exceed all the specs, but they need to be written in a way that they don't unfairly limit the competition to one specific brand, and I think that may have been one of the consequences of the way that the specs were written in this specific case. But the city does also have the ability to waive some of those non-conforming issues. And in this case, the Public Works Department reviewed the options that did not specifically meet the specification sheet, and they determined that they substantially conformed with it, and it's still functional for what they need it for.
You know, my concern about that is, what if, I have to look at your name, what if Hennon Equipment could have provided us the same thing that Titan Machinery provided us, but they were bidding because they were meeting the specs that they were given? I feel like it's not fair. They're like going, okay, here's our specs. We got to do this, 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 so this is what we're bidding. And it looks like the other company, Titan, comes in and says, well, this isn't that important and this isn't that important, so we're going to bid this even though it doesn't really match the specs. And I feel like you're not comparing apples to apples under that circumstance.
Yeah, and I think in that case, you know, a contractor can certainly submit more than one bid if they've got more than one piece of equipment.
Why would he? Why would he? He was following the specs, in my opinion. I feel like I agree with.
And ours has 2 conveyors on. That wasn't in the bid spec, though. Ours has 2 conveyors, discharge conveyors. Ours has a tandem axle, where the one is only a single. And again, the tandem axle was not in the bid spec, so I can't say that that was a requirement. But that's where our machine is a very operator-friendly. It's very easy to move around and stuff. And so, I mean, And we bid, like I said, we met all the spec requirements that were on the bid. We didn't deviate.
Susan, I didn't really hear a question in there, but just to kind of answer a little bit on your concern, I guess. The exceptions we took on it are not...
You need to stand just a little bit closer. So
sorry about that. The exceptions that we took aren't... they're not going to produce less for your municipality. It's still going to produce in the same class as our competition. But it is different. I will not argue.
So let me ask you this.
Yep.
Did you contact Kevin and say, look, we can't do exactly this? Did you get approval for those exceptions?
What I did, yeah, I reached out to Kevin and I said, could I... Yeah, the punch plate, and I basically said there will be some exceptions on there. His response was, I can't tell you not to bid.
So if I'm bidding for an eagle and you give me a hawk, I have to take it because they're both birds of prey?
No, you don't. The way the spec was written, I had zero competition. I couldn't have going toward as far down as transport dimensions was written in the spec. So if you wanted an eagle, your eagle had to be 3 feet tall, weigh 4.1 pounds, and have one blue eye and one red eye. So that's the only eagle that you can bid. That's pretty hard to find. Agree?
But you could bid one bigger. You could build it bigger. You could bid. It says specifications, the minimum or exceed the specifications. So you could have bid a larger machine. That's we have like 5 different sizes in our that we can bid from. So
as do we.
So I mean, you could have bid a larger one. So it doesn't mean no two manufacturers make exactly the same.
Correct.
Thing.
Absolutely. Would you agree that they make?
I'm going to let you guys argue that out in the hall. I'm going to ask Justin a question. At what point do we tip over from following bid laws to not following bid laws when we make exception? At what point does the court say, well, that's one exception too many?
I don't think there's going to be a bright line answer on that, Mel. I think in this case, if I'm looking at the totality of the circumstances, I think that there's enough substantial conformance that it's within your discretion to award it if you want. I'm not saying that you have to, because there are, still exceptions. There are things that do not specifically conform to the spec. But if you wanted to waive those, I think you can, because I think they're close enough that it's not giving anybody an unfair advantage. If you go back to your example and you say, yeah, you can meet or exceed this, at what point are you saying, okay, well, you've got a Ford F-150 here and you've got a Dodge Ram truck. Well, the Dodge Ram truck isn't quite big enough to meet the spec, so Dodge is going to have to give us a monster truck instead. I mean, you've got to have something that's comparable.
So I guess, Kevin, if these particular specifications didn't matter, how come it was written that way? How come? I mean, I don't have the expertise, but if we didn't need a 12-foot truck bed, if a 10-foot truck bed would work, a different example. Why weren't the specs written, a minimum of 10 rather than, it's got to be 12?
Well, you got to kind of pick and choose. One thing about compost screeners, and there's not a ton of them on the market, and when you're looking for something within your budget, that makes things even more complicated. So you take, even like the transport dimensions, your dimensions could vary a long ways. Some of your other specs could vary a long ways apart. So you kind of look at them and you say, okay, here's 5 machines that are kind of within my budget. Okay, all 5 of them got different horsepower engines. So you almost, if you're going to do that, you almost take, say you got 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 horsepower motors.
Or you say a minimum.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. And that's kind of what some of it is. But at some point, you can't say, minimum on each and every little thing. You got to kind of.
But isn't that what a bid specification is? A specification?
You know, in my line of work, I participate in bids. And the example that I can use is that there are jobs that say we're speccing Hunter Douglas, and I can say, gosh, I can give them a Graber shade that's just as good, but they want Hunter Douglas, so I'm going to bid Hunter Douglas. And someone else comes in and says, hey, you know, it does this, it's got the same warranty, blah, 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 but it's a little lower price. That's not fair to me. If I went ahead and bid the Hunter Douglas, this is not a plug. But you know my point? I feel like, I feel like it's arbitrary. I think that's my concern, is that it seems arbitrary, like we set these specs and then we decide, well, maybe it's not that important. And I think it's only fair that we should let all the other bidders know that those kinds of things weren't as important. I would just like to see Hennon Equipment have the opportunity. Maybe they have the same thing that they could bid at a lower price.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me what we get for machine. You know, this just kind of come up just recently here after the bid and stuff. But, you know, I understand everything. I had consulted with Justin on this, and we had spoke about it because there's kind of a gray area. And I like Justin saying, if I want a new bulldozer, you can't just go out there and say, I want a Cat bulldozer, and that's all we're bidding, is just strictly Cat. Well, what about all these other bulldozer companies, Case and Komatsu and everything else? That's what Justin's saying. You can't spec it so specific that nobody else can get in the market for it. And I guess that's the spec.
Let me understand the timeline here. When we opened these bids and you looked at them, was it basically considered that day that this is the low bid and we're going to take that? Or did you get with Justin and start to walk through and say, we've got some issues here and we're going to come to a conclusion where I think the dollar amount that we have in place is going to be what we're going to have for the best end result? I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but as you work through the two bids, when did you and Justin then determine that you were going to recommend the Titan machinery?
The bid award was last Tuesday. Yep, last Tuesday. It was, I think, that afternoon or the following morning. I contacted Justin right away because of we wanted, to get it on the next council for the award. So and as soon as we opened the three, one of them was kind of way out of our price range. These two were very competitive. One's $2,000 less, $2,000 under our budget. Our budget's $125. One's $10,000 over. So as soon as I noticed the deviation and it was a little better, I scheduled an appointment with Justin and we discussed it. And we discussed the 90 days, and then at that point I made a phone call to the supplier saying, I wanted to better understand this 90 days. Do you have one on hand, and would it be delivered in 60 days? And the response was, if the bid gets awarded at the council meeting or whatever, and we can get this locked in, yes, you'll have it in 4 to 6 weeks. If it's something that you don't award the bid for a couple weeks, they sell this machine, and we have to get you another one, then it could be 90 days. I sat down with the city attorney and we discussed these, and what was in our budget was $123,000. The specs, there's a few exceptions there, but there's also some exceeds. So you kind of weigh one and weigh the other, and I guess we just discussed that there wasn't enough to really throw out the low bid in order to take the next one up. Yes, the next one up has a few more features. It's probably a better machine, and just the conveyor itself on the second machine is probably worth more than $12,000. There's $12,000 difference. If the first one doesn't have a second conveyor belt on the back, on the rear, if you were to add that on the first one, it would probably cost $12,000. I'm just guessing. I don't know that for a fact, but so I guess after speaking with the city attorney, that was the decision that we have to kind of work with the low bid that we have at hand.
But I mean, if you make exceptions to the delivery time, allowing them to come in and say, oh no, now we can deliver it sooner, well then, can we deviate our bid too? See, I mean, we're not, in my opinion, we're not sticking to what the bid, it's set on the bid.
The bid specified that if you could not deliver in 60 days, you did owe liquidated damages, and we're agreeing that if we cannot provide you one in 60 days, we will pay that. That would
Your
be.
bid said you'd deliver in 90 days.
I think the bid actually said if there was one available, it would be delivered within the timeline. If there was not one, then it would then be 90 days.
That is correct.
And I guess what we can do is just refuse all bids. City council has the right to refuse all bids. We could sit down and create a new set of specs, and we could put it out for bids again. I mean, that's just an option.
And in discussing, we did discuss that option as well when Kevin and I met. I think the reason that he didn't want to go, and I don't mean to speak for Kevin here, but he wanted to have this equipment sooner rather than later, and the additional time to rebid it was going to kind of cut into their operations a little bit. But as you suggested, Jeff, Kevin came in shortly after the bids were, the bid opening, came in, discussed the issue. We kind of went through the same analysis. I mentioned tonight, look at the totality of the circumstances. Are the specs unusually restrictive, or do they pretty much say that only this one piece of equipment is going to meet it? And are the non-conforming items still in substantial conformance to what the spec is? And I think in this case, all of those were answered in favor of Titan. None of the deviations are all that large from the spec, yet they do not meet the specific lettering, the wording in the specification, but they do still substantially conform to it. And I don't think waiving any of those differences is going to be a disadvantage, an unfair advantage to any competitor.
So this is something that we do pretty common. I mean, obviously, I've been sitting here for 12 years, and I haven't ever really got into a bid argument, I'm going to call it like this, before after 12 years. So my question is, does this happen before? I mean, you know, I'm not putting anybody in a spot, but Lyndon and Kevin, have you guys, does this happen when you buy other machinery that we bought? I mean, I just never remember things like this at all. I mean, usually the specifications are there. And
I hate to bring it up.
I'm not trying to pick anybody, but can somebody help me out a little bit? I don't remember this ever happening.
Kevin, you want to come up to the speaker?
Yeah, you buy a lot of machinery.
His was surplus.
It's a difficult subject, but the city does reserve the right to waive some formalities, and that falls within the city attorney's preview to look it over and go over it with the department head. This particular instance, if you go back to bid, it gives the competitors an unfair advantage because now they've seen what you're going to be bidding. So it's really a tough spot to be in. And I understand where Kevin's coming from with the bid with these, only got $125,000 to work with. You need the equipment, what are you going to do? And it's up to the council if they want to supplement the budget. You know, it puts, like I say, it's not an easy spot to be on a large piece of equipment like that. And it's, you know.
And $10,000 would, if you choose to go with that, Hennon, the landfill is your enterprise fund. We wouldn't have a problem with that.
Kevin, let me ask you this. Where are we at with our existing piece of equipment? Is it done?
No, we have no existing piece of equipment. That was a piece of equipment. That's our compost pile, our rock screening pile for all of our rock chips, and then our winter sand. We use it for three things. We use it at the landfill, and we also use it at street shop. Up till last year, we always rented from the city of Huron. We were paying $1,000 for use once a year. We use it for 2 weeks. We were paying $1,000. Last year, they gave us a contract. It was going to be upwards of $7,000 to use that machine. At that point, it was broke down. We didn't do it. I got in a deal with Vermeer last year. Vermeer was doing a prototype unit. They actually came to the city of Mitchell. They didn't do our rock chips or our sand, but they did screen my entire compost for us free of charge. Because it was a prototype unit. They couldn't charge for use. It was something they needed to put hours on to check the durability and functionality of it. So we were not charged a single penny last year. That was through Vermeer. So that was so we made a decision to purchase one, and with regards to if the city would ever choose and want to rent it out to try to make back some of their money, they could do that. There's just not a lot of these things around. The one that was in the city of Huron was bought years ago off city surplus. A lot of communities around the state have been renting this thing. And up till last year, it went from $1,000, for our hour usage, upwards of $6,500 to $7,000. It was a dramatic increase, and at that time, we kind of made a decision. We might as well just have one for ourselves, because we use it, like I said, for the compost, which is for all your citizens and residents. We screen our 3/8-inch rock chips. For all of our chip seal, we vacuum it up. We try to salvage as much as we can. We salvage about 400 to 500 ton a year that we don't have to repurchase, and then we have to screen our salt pile to have our salt sand mix for our winter use.
And I think coming back to the budget is probably one of the bigger factors here. If you're going to ask Kevin, I'd assume that he'd tell you that he'd be happy with either one of these pieces of equipment. The problem is that the second one is over budget, and he thinks he can make do with the first one. So I think that was a major contributor to why he was recommending that one.
Yeah, and that was within our budget. The second one, in my mind, is a little bit nicer machine. It does have a rear conveyor, which at some point I would probably have to purchase for the first machine, because it's something that we probably need or will need in some time in the future. So all in all, you guys can make the decision. Whatever we get, I'll be fine with either one. I can make do with whatever.
I haven't looked at the bid law in a long time, but my problem is the bid law doesn't say, I don't think, you work the bid that's within your budget. That's the problem.
Well, I'm going to get it off the table. I'm going to move to reject all bids.
Can I ask a quick question then? So you had 60 days on here. Obviously, you were going to use it right away. But if you delay this, tell me the timing of the delay. We have to.
Well, you're probably looking at about 2 months, 6 weeks.
And what does that do to you, Kevin?
Well, I'm going to probably have to purchase more rock for chip sealing than I normally would. Compost, there's quite a bit out there. If we don't do it for a year, it's not gonna hurt us. If we run out, we run out. Citizens just don't get any, residents. Might have to cut back. Instead of letting them bring a pickup load, you can get 5 5-gallon pails if it starts running low. It's just that we don't charge for it. It's a free service that we give the residents of the city that are paying customers. And, so that's kind of what it is. The 3/8-inch rock, it's not a make or break there. 3/8-inch rock, I might have to purchase 400 to 500 extra ton. You're not talking a lot of money. You're talking probably you're definitely less than $5,000 probably. So it's not a big deal that way. I just won't have a piece of equipment for this year, and I can live with it. It's no big deal.
I have a question. Is our only option to either accept Titan machinery or reject all? Are those our two choices?
No, you can reject one and take another one. That's up to the city council.
Yeah, because Titan Machinery did have non-complying issue, or the term's not coming to my head.
I was going to say, probably isn't the right word.
Right, they had some non-complying terms. You can reject that bid and award it to the next lowest bidder then.
The other thing is, Kevin, how much the back conveyor belt, you just said that you probably eventually going to have to buy that for the Titan Machinery one. How much is that going to cost?
Wade might be able to answer that.
Off the top of my head, I don't have that prepared right now.
You know,
it'll be more than $12,000.
So you know where I'm going at with this. I mean, so later, you just said, Kevin, you said that we have to buy this at a later date. The other one has it on there, which is going to cost us more than $12,000 at a later date. I just don't see why I want to spend something for something I need later for more than what I can get it for right now at $12,000 difference. That makes a lot of sense. Just foolish spending of money if we do it that way. The other concern I do have is the fact that I still go back to the fact of specs. We have to do them all the time for my building. We spec out clinics. We do this, and if we don't build it or bid it to the specs, we can come back afterwards and try to do alternates with them, up to their, with them approving it. But we got to build it or design it or at least bid it to the specs we have. Otherwise, you're thrown out, and that's in the building world, of course. But I look at it the same way from what I said in my job, and right now I'm for getting the equipment we need. We don't got to buy something down the road in a year, and it's gonna be the right one, and it's bid to specs. I'm for Heenan.
Yeah, and especially the fact that Kevin said that he would need the back
conveyor
conveyor belt down the road, and we'd be getting it up front.
Kevin, you said you could find the additional $10,000 over your budget?
Yeah, the landfills.
Well, we have a motion to deny everything right now. If somebody wants to award the bid, they need a substitute motion.
I'd like to make a substitute motion that we award Hennen Equipment the bid of Hennen Equipment and reject Titan Machinery for not complying with the specs.
Second.
So just procedurally, you're going to be voting on substituting the motion right now, and then you'll have to come back and actually vote on the motion.
Vote on the award the bid, you mean?
Right. So right now you're deciding whether you want to, if you still want to reject it, vote no right now. If you want to change the motion, vote yes. And if that's not making sense to people, ask me to clarify it, and I'll try.
I think you could do it all in one swoop, but if we want to take two votes, I'm fine with that. Because usually, if you vote on the substitute motion, it replaces the original motion, but if we want to dot all the I's and cross the T's, we can have two votes.
I'm guessing people are going to vote the same way either.
Yeah. So what we're voting on right now is to say we want to award to Hennen, but we won't be awarding. And if we say yes to that, then we'll vote to award. Take her away.
Roll call or what?
Let's have a roll call on it then, yeah. Substitute motion we're voting on right now.
Right.
Olson.
Aye.
Rice.
No.
Dosher. McCardle.
Yes.
Barrington. Aye. Allen.
No.
Sharks.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
6-2, right?
6-2.
Motion
Now you-
carries.
Now
Move
you
to
can-
award.
There we go.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries. Okay, then we'll move on to action to award bids for 15th in Minnesota valve replacement city project. Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I was just picking up my stuff here.
Oh.
Okay. Thank you for the sale.
Okay, start over again. Action to award bids for 15th and Minnesota valve replacement city project number 2018-23.
We had 5 contractors for this schedule. We would recommend awarding to Olson Construction out of Huron for $18,839.50. What we're doing in this project is we are replacing a existing valve that does not operate anymore, and with that we're going to be replacing a little bit of water main, putting in a new hydrant and a new hydrant valve.
Move to approve Olson.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is action to approve agreement number A2018-15, an agreement for professional services to evaluate the City of Mitchell's wastewater collection system.
Included in your packet was a staff report as well as a professional services agreement for the wastewater collection system. I will talk in general. If you have specific questions, I know I saw Jeff McCormick walk through the door, so I will make him answer those. Yeah, or we'll just put Kyle on the spot. That works too. In general terms, the contract would allow us to get an evaluation of our current system, what the current deferred maintenance issues are, current needs are, as well as future planning for expansion and future demand and need. It would put us in a similar position to where we are with the water treatment facility or the water distribution facility plan. Let's see if I get that whole term right. It allows us to make our future capital improvement plan budget decisions off of the finalized plan. I did have one comment this weekend, and I realized I think the blizzard had my brain blurry. Just to clarify, the total contract price, I believe, was $107,500. $107,000. The reason why mine don't add up is there's going to be a $21,500 budget request for 2019. We had $80,000 in the budget for 2018. The difference will come out of other budget funds already approved for different projects that will have excess in 2018. So we do have the full funds for the $107,000. It's just $21,500 will be a request for the 2019, but we're in 18, right? Yeah, the 2019 budget year.
And I one question, and I read it in here, I just want to confirm. So if we start this, then by a year from now, I think it says by 12 months, we'll have the report so we could, as we're doing the 2020 budget at that point, in the summer of 2019, we would have this to know what type of funds or the timing of funds for the wastewater changes or whatever comes up.
Now, a year from now, we're not going to get $80,000 to finish the study, are we?
That's
no
the other question.
We will be ready to go design at that point. All costs included in the estimate.
Just for the people listening, can you describe the difference between water and wastewater? And you know, when you talk to people about their water, they assume everything's the same.
Right. So this would be after it goes down the drain, and it goes away. That goes into the collection system and then goes to the water treatment plant. Right now, the city has 14 lift stations that help to pump the water from low areas back into the gravity system. This report will include evaluation of all 14 of those stations, put together cost estimates of any rehab that's required within those stations. And then we're going to also look heavily at the amount of I&I, or inflow and infiltration, which would be groundwater or stormwater that is coming into the wastewater. For capacity reasons, because the city does have capacity issues when we get large rain events, and one being the snow melt that's going to probably be happening here this week. which with that, we've already started to get flow recorders into the system to start measuring the amount of water so that we can get this amount of groundwater that's coming through the system.
So we have meltwater or stormwater leaking into our sewage system?
Yes, there's going to be location that happens. Some of it is acceptable, some of it you can treat. But obviously, anytime we have to pump that, and we got to pump it through the wastewater facility, it limits the capacity that the wastewater system can handle. We want to try to eliminate as much of that as possible. There's a significant amount of sanitary sewer system that's going to be made of clay pipe, which has gone through its useful life cycle, and we're going to start looking at to determine what areas of town have a higher percentage of that I&I, and then we can overlay that with the water improvements that we talked about in that previous study to try to help develop a master plan.
The other thing that's good is now you can combine those two infrastructure projects in conjunction with other work the city's doing versus trying to piecemeal one at a time.
Right, yeah, and to me, you want to look at that as far as the master planning go, whether it's the street condition on Sanborn that was causing the need for the project, or if it's the water or the sewer, but we want to be able to have those all collectively so we can develop the best master plan for the community.
So are you using cameras, or are you having Art Norton go down there?
The city has some of it cambered.
Yeah. You look out. Nobody knows Jackie Gleason. Ed Norton.
The city has video cameraed a percentage of the town, and I think we've got in the report that we're estimating there's going to be about 20 blocks worth of camera video that we'll look at and kind of make a general assumption through town. But then we're going to use more of the flow data, either the hours on the lift stations and the flow recorders that we're going to have installed to measure the amount of high flow and low flow so that we can compare it to wet periods of time versus dry periods. And that's why the study's out there longer so that we can have these flow recorders in the system for up to 2 months so that we can hopefully get the snow runoff, get some rain events, but then also get into some drier periods so we can see what the normal level would be.
So this may be jumping the gun, but how do we find the clay pipe? Is that the cameras?
No, the city's got a pretty good map that determines where all the clay pipe is and where the newer PVC pipe has been installed.
The city has a lot of that on the mapping they already created.
Is there a lot of that old clay pipe in town, Barry? Yeah. Miles of it.
Yes.
It's a good future planning tool for us moving forward.
Move to approve agreement A 2018-15.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.